All right, let's get into a little bit of 3D here. Now, After Effects traditionally has always been a 2D program. However, in recent years, they've implemented 3D, and it's getting pretty good. There's still better 3D projects out there, programs out there, but this one does pretty well. So, first thing we need to understand is when we created this image, we filmed this on a screen, and a camera only films 2D, right? So, with JC, I can actually activate the 3D layer for her, okay? But even if I do that, if I rotate, like it's not a 3D object. That's not a 3D model of JC. That is just 2 dimensions. The difference is when we get a 3D object, like an OBJ or something, when we drag that file in, it actually is a 3D model. So if you've modeled something in 3D software or you download something, we can bring it in here and After Effects understands it is 3D. Now, I'm not expecting anyone to model anything. Instead, we are going to use a website called Production Crate. And Production Crate is a paid site. However, our department has a license for it. So you're able to get 3D objects from here or anything else that you want just by sending me a Teams message and I can download it. So for example, go to 3D. And I'm going to have a bunch of these that you can download in the common drive. But if you want, you can just get your own. So as I go through here, let's just go to tech, for example. And here's just a few ideas of some tech stuff that I could download. So I'm going to take this camera, all right? I know JC likes cameras, so let's take this camera here. I'm going to click on it. Now, if you want a specific thing, you find the one you want, and you actually have to click on it right here, the title. And it's going to take you to a page that it sits on. This page, just copy that URL and send it to me on Teams, and I'll get it for you. Now, specifically, we want the GLB file. There are different 3D formats, but GLBs work really, really well in After Effects, and they also have all the texture built in. They're just so much easier to use. So I'm going to download this GLB file, and then I'm going to drag it into my After Effects project. So just give me a second and I'll do that for you. Now, this is technically not the JC file. I just want to show you something. When I take that GLB file and I drag it in, it identifies it as a 3D object. You can see it gives me a little preview there. When you drag it into your comp for the very first time, it's going to ask you some options about what you want to do with it. So when I drag that in like this, it's really important that you make it a comp size. Now, sometimes it won't matter, but other times it makes a big difference. So always make comp size. It basically means some 3D objects are just huge, right? So you don't want that. So you make it a comp size, click OK, and then it's it. So now I'm just going to go back to the JC one now that you've seen that. Once you've kind of inserted it once, it won't ask you that anymore. So that's why I had to do it in a new project. So I'm going to take this GLB camera and I'm going to drag it in here. And again, I've already chosen that I want to make it comp size. And from here, it's an object, right? Just like any other image or something that I could drag in, a video. So I'm going to scale it. I'm going to put it right above her hand like that. Yeah, I don't know, something like that's all right. Okay, now here's the difference. This object, as I showed you before, even though JC is, looks normal, it's a 2D image of the video. Whereas this camera, it has 3D objects or 3D properties by default. So when I rotate it, it actually is a true 3D model, which means I can move it around in space and it will always look realistic. I never get that flat look that I get with video. Now here's the downside. All the cool effects that we can do on After Effects, you cannot apply those onto a 3D object just at this point. It kind of causes issues. So we have to trick After Effects a little bit. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this 3D object, now that we've resized it, and we're going to right click it and we're going to create what's called a pre-comp. And a pre-comp basically takes a single object or a group of objects and it kind of combines them into a new composition. And it's a way that in After Effects you can apply the same effect to multiple objects very easily, or in this case you can actually apply effects to a 3D object. So I'm going to do a pre-comp and I'll just call it like camera pre-comp or something like that. It looks the exact same, but it technically doesn't have that 3D property anymore, which is okay. I don't need it to have it. And JC doesn't need it either. But when I double click that camera pre-comp, there it is. it just sits in here now. And you're rarely going to edit in here, but it will just, anything we do in this one will update over here. So for example, right now when I play this, it just does that. So what if I go to the camera pre-comp and I say, you know what, I know this is a 3D object, so I'm going to go up to transform. I'm going to rotate the Y rotation, and over a period of whatever this is, 7 seconds, I'm going to get it to rotate maybe 3 times. Okay, and now it's going to rotate. So I'm just adding a rotation, and I do that in the pre-comp, nowhere else. Now when I come back here, I have a rotating camera. And you couldn't do that if you had a picture of a camera, right? You have to, if you want something to rotate, you have to have a 3D model of it. Otherwise it just won't work. It'll turn into that, like, you know, 2-dimensional flat piece of paper thing when you rotate it. So it's kind of cool. I've got, you know, it's something. One other thing before we get into effects, remember how we tracked the hand? The hand's moving. We might as well have the camera follow that track, and it's so easy to do. All we're going to do is we're going to take the camera pre-comp here. We're going to go to the parent and link, and we're going to assign it to null 1, because null 1 is what was controlling the hand, right, or following the hand. So now, in addition to rotating, it actually follows her hand pretty nicely. And if I want the camera to be somewhere else, like I could go to my transform tools and I could actually move it a little bit. And now it'll just stay a little closer to her hand as it rotates. So that's kind of the null object. I wanted a little higher because we're actually going to have it project out of her hand as if there's like a hologram in her hand, something like that. And if you can get to this point where you can have an object rotating around and following the hand, it's a pretty good start.